The U.S. Defiance moved slowly through the dark space between stars. Commander Kim To stood on the bridge, looking at the bright screens that showed maps of new worlds. His ship carried 127 people. They had been flying for 3 months, looking for planets where humans could build new homes. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. Officer Park Min-soo sat at a station, watching the sensors that could see far into space. The young woman Lee Dasam checked their weapons, though they had not seen any danger in weeks. Everything seemed normal and safe. Taeho liked these quiet moments. His crew worked well together. They had found 12 planets that might be good for human families. Soon they would go home and share their maps with Earth. People would be happy to know about these new worlds. "Sir," Min-soo called out suddenly. His voice sounded worried. "I see something strange. There's an energy reading about 2,000 kilometers away from us." Taeho walked over to look at Min-soo's screen. The readings made no sense. Their long-distance scans had shown the star system was empty. No planets had life. No ship should be here. "Can you tell what it is?" Taeho asked. Before Min-soo could answer, the ship shook hard. Red lights began flashing everywhere. A loud alarm filled the bridge. Taeho grabbed his chair to keep from falling. "What happened?" he shouted over the noise. "Energy nets around our ship." The Som yelled from her station. "Our weapons are not working. Our engine stopped." Taeho felt his heart beat faster. He looked at the main screen and saw glowing nets of power wrapped around his ship. The nets crackled with electricity that hurt to look at. Then something even worse happened. Ships appeared out of nowhere. One moment the space around them was empty. The next moment, 20 large ships surrounded the Defiance. These ships looked like nothing Taeho had ever seen. They were long and curved like the bones of dead animals. Their color was sick green mixed with gold. Strange bumps covered their surface like tumors. "Where did they come from?" someone whispered. The alien ships were 3 times bigger than the Defiance. Their weapons pointed at the human ship from every direction. There was no way to escape. The energy nets held them tight, like a spider's web. A voice came through their radio. It sounded beautiful but cold, like music made of ice. "Small creatures," the voice said, "you have come where you do not belong. This space belongs to the hegemony. Your kind will spread no further." Taeho's blood turned cold. Every human who traveled to deep space knew stories about the hegemony. They were the nightmare that lived between stars. Old, powerful aliens who hated younger races. They had destroyed entire worlds, wiping out species that tried to explore space. "All crew, prepare to fight," Taeho commanded. He pulled out his weapon. Throughout the ship, his people ran to battle stations. The aliens came through the walls like ghosts. Their technology made the ship's barriers useless. Taeho watched in horror as strange beings appeared in his corridors. Some were tall and thin with faces like crystal. Others were huge with 4 arms and long teeth. Bug-like creatures with many eyes crawled along the ceiling. The sounds of fighting filled the ship. Human voices shouted. Alien weapons made terrible noises. Sergeant Kong Ji-woo led his soldiers against the invaders in the main corridor. Corporal Yoon Hana fought bravely near the medical bay. But the aliens had weapons that seemed to bend reality. Human bullets bounced off their armor. Their energy blasts cut through metal like paper. One by one, Taeho's people fell. The aliens moved through the ship like a plague. Nothing could stop them. In the engineering section, Specialist Cho Sung-min was working on the main reactor when an alien weapon hit the power system. Sparks flew everywhere. Radiation warnings screamed. The area became deadly for any living thing. The aliens saw the danger readings and decided not to enter that section. They marked it as clear on their list and moved to other parts of the ship. They did not know that Sung-min had managed to reach a safe spot just before the radiation spread. Back on the bridge, Taeho fought until the end. His officers died around him. The beautiful alien voices grew closer. With his last strength, he sent one final message into space. A distress signal that might reach other humans, warning them of the danger. Then an alien blade found his heart. Commander Kim Taeho fell to the floor. The bridge became silent. Throughout the ship, the last sounds of fighting died away. The hegemony had won. They began their work, taking apart human technology and studying it. They would use the ship's navigation data to find human colonies. Then they would destroy them all. The Defiance floated dead in space. Its crew was gone. Its mission was over. At least, that is what the aliens believed. Deep in the reactor section, hidden behind radiation barriers, Cho Sung-min breathed quietly in the dark. He was hurt and alone, but he was alive. The aliens had made their first mistake. They had left a human breathing. Cho Sung-min lay in the narrow maintenance tunnel, trying not to make any sound. His body hurt everywhere. Burns covered his arms from the radiation blast. Blood filled his mouth when he breathed. But he was alive, and that was what mattered. The tunnel was so small, he could barely move. It ran behind the main reactor, built for emergency repairs. The thick walls kept the deadly radiation out, but they also trapped him inside. He could hear the aliens working on his ship through the metal walls. For 3 days, he did not move. He listened to footsteps in the corridors above. Strange voices spoke in languages he did not understand. Sometimes he heard the sound of human equipment being torn apart. The aliens were stealing everything useful from Defiance. Sung-min had a small water container and some food bars from the emergency kit. He ate tiny amounts to make them last longer. His stomach hurt from hunger, but staying alive was more important than being comfortable. On the 4th day, he found a small camera screen in the wall. It was part of the ship's security system. The aliens had not found all the cameras yet. Through the tiny screen, he could see into the main engineering room. 3 different types of aliens worked there. The tall ones looked like people made of glass. Their skin was clear and sparkled in the light. They seemed to be the leaders. They pointed at things and gave orders to the others. The big ones were scary. They had 4 arms and stood twice as tall as a human. Their skin was gray and rough like stone. Long teeth came out of their mouths like a wild animal. These creatures did the hard work, lifting heavy equipment with their powerful arms. The strangest ones looked like giant insects. They had many eyes and thin arms that could bend in impossible ways. These bug-like aliens studied human technology with great interest. They could connect directly to computers by touching them with their fingers. Sung-min watched them for hours. He learned that the glass-like aliens called themselves Kithara. They thought they were the smartest beings in the galaxy. The big ones were called Vorthak. They loved to fight and destroy things. The bug aliens were Zephyrians. They understood technology better than anyone. But as he watched them work, Sung-min noticed something important. These aliens always did things the same way. They had rules for everything. When they found human equipment, they tried to use it exactly like their own technology. If it did not work the way they expected, they threw it away. They did not understand that humans built things differently. Human machines were made to work even when they were broken. Human systems could be fixed with simple tools. The aliens only knew how to use perfect, advanced technology. On the 7th day, Sung-min decided to test his theory. He crawled through the maintenance tunnels to reach a power control box the aliens had not found. His hands shook as he worked. If they caught him, he would die. He changed some wires in the gravity system. It was a small change, but it would cause problems later. Then he crawled back to his hiding place and waited. 2 hours later, he heard shouting from the engineering room. The gravity had failed in one section of the ship. 3 Zephyrian workers were floating in the air, unable to control their movement. They crashed into walls and equipment, making terrible screeching sounds. Sung-min watched through a small screen as the Kithara leader examined the problem. She looked at the human gravity system with confusion. Instead of trying to understand how it worked, she simply marked that area as dangerous and told her workers to avoid it. This gave Sung-min hope. The aliens were smart, but they could not think like humans. They expected everything to work perfectly. When something went wrong, they did not try to fix it. They just worked around the problem. Over the next few days, Sung-min caused more small accidents. He made cutting tools overheat when the Vorthak used them. He caused air recycling systems to produce bad smells in areas where aliens were working. He made lights flicker in patterns that confused the Zephyrians' many eyes. Each time, The aliens blamed the accidents on unfamiliar human technology. They never suspected that someone was causing the problems on purpose. In their long history, they had never fought an enemy who was already supposed to be dead. From his hiding place, Sungmin also learned terrible things. The aliens had done this before many times. They traveled through space looking for young races that might become dangerous. Then they destroyed them completely. They had wiped out the blue-skinned Altarians 50 years ago. They had burned the crystal cities of the Mendari to ash. They had poisoned the oceans of the peaceful Cathani. Dozens of species had died by hegemony hands. Now, they planned to do the same to humanity. They were using data from captured human ships to find every human colony. Their fleet would visit each world and kill everyone there. Men, women, children, none would survive. But Sungmin had found something the aliens did not know he had seen. In their computer files, he had discovered detailed maps of their entire fleet. He knew where their ships were, what weapons they carried, and how their technology worked. If he could somehow get this information to other humans, it could save millions of lives. He just had to figure out how to do it while trapped alone on a ship full of enemies. The aliens thought all the humans were dead. That was their first mistake. Soon, Sungmin would show them what one living human could do. Sungmin spent 2 weeks crawling through the dark spaces inside his ship. The maintenance tunnels were like a secret highway that only he knew about. The aliens walked above him, never knowing he was there. Every day, he caused new problems for them. He made their tools break at the worst times. He changed the air temperature in rooms where they were working. He made computer screens show wrong information. The aliens grew angry and confused, but they never thought to look for a human causing trouble. The Kithra leader, a tall female with crystal skin, became more frustrated each day. Sungmin watched her through hidden cameras as she shouted at her workers. She could not understand why human technology kept failing. Her people had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never seen machines that acted so strangely. The Vorthak warriors were even more confused. They were used to breaking things, not fixing them. When their cutting tools stopped working, they just hit them harder. This usually made the problems worse. Sungmin smiled as he watched four-armed giants struggle with simple human equipment. The Zephyrians were the most interesting to watch. These bug-like aliens could connect their minds to any computer, but human systems confused them. Human computers were built to work even when parts were broken. They had backup systems for backup systems. The Zephyrians expected clean, perfect technology. Instead, they found messy human engineering that somehow still worked. During his 3rd week of hiding, Sungmin made an important discovery. The aliens had left many useful things in the storage rooms. They took the big, obvious technology, but they ignored small human tools. To them, a simple wrench or wire cutter looked like primitive junk. But to a human engineer, these tools were treasure. Sungmin began collecting what he needed. He took apart broken human equipment to get useful parts. He found chemicals in the cleaning supplies that could be mixed to make explosives. He discovered that human medical supplies could be used to make poison gas. The aliens had no idea that everyday human items could become weapons. He also studied the alien equipment they had brought onto his ship. Their technology was incredibly advanced, but had weaknesses. It was built to work perfectly in perfect conditions. When something unexpected happened, it often failed completely. Human technology was different. It was built by people who expected things to go wrong. Every system had multiple ways to work. If one part broke, another part could take over. This made human machines less elegant than alien ones, but much harder to completely destroy. As he worked, Sungmin learned more about the hegemony's plans. They had detailed maps of human space. They knew where Earth was. They knew about the colonies on Mars and Europa. They even knew about the secret military bases that most humans had never heard of. Their plan was simple and terrible. They would visit each human world in turn. They would drop weapons from space that would kill everything alive. No battles, no surrender, just complete extinction. They had done this to 47 other species. Soon, they would do it to humanity. But Sungmin also discovered something that gave him hope. All of this information was stored in the alien computers on his ship. Fleet positions, weapon specifications, tactical plans. Everything was there. If he could somehow transmit this data to human space, it could change everything. The problem was distance. The nearest human outpost was 6 months away by normal radio. The aliens would finish their work and leave long before any message could reach help. He needed a way to send information faster than light speed. That was when he remembered the ship's main reactor. The Defiance used a fusion reactor to power its faster-than-light engines. If he could modify the reactor in the right way, he might be able to turn it into a giant transmitter. The explosion would destroy the ship, but it would also send a message across many light years in an instant. The idea was dangerous and probably impossible. He would have to rebuild parts of the reactor while hiding from the aliens. He would need to encode all the stolen information into a signal that could survive the violent transmission, and he would have to do it all without getting caught. But Sungmin had advantages the aliens did not know about. He understood every system on the ship. He knew which parts were important and which ones were just for show. Most importantly, he knew that humans had always won their greatest victories when the situation seemed hopeless. He began his work slowly and carefully. Each night, when most of the aliens were resting, he crawled through the reactor area making small changes. He rerouted power cables and modified control systems. He prepared data files with all the information about hegemony fleet positions and technology. The aliens continued their own work above him, never suspecting that their greatest enemy was working just a few meters away. They were stripping the Defiance of everything valuable, getting ready to use its navigation data to find and destroy human worlds. Some men worked faster. Time was running out. Soon, the aliens would finish their salvage work and leave. When that happened, billions of humans would die unless he could warn them. The hunter had become the hunted, but the aliens did not know it yet. One human with simple tools and desperate courage was preparing to turn their victory into their greatest defeat. The crystal-skinned Kithra commander named Velthara stood in the main corridor of the Defiance, her glass-like face showing anger. For 4 weeks, strange accidents had been happening on the human ship. Tools broke for no reason. Computer systems failed at the worst times. 3 more Zephyrian workers had been hurt when a gravity system suddenly reversed. These failures follow a pattern, she told a lieutenant, a smaller Kithra with blue crystal skin. Something is causing these problems on purpose. Her lieutenant looked confused. But, Commander, all the humans are dead. We checked every room, every corridor. The radiation section killed the last one. Velthara's eyes glowed brighter, a sign she was thinking hard. Perhaps we missed something. Begin a complete search of this vessel. Check every space, no matter how small, deep in his hiding place. Sungmin heard these words through a listening device he had placed near the corridor. His heart beat faster. The aliens were finally looking for him. Soon they would find the maintenance tunnels he had been using. He looked at his work. The reactor modifications were almost finished, but he needed more time. The transmitter would not be ready for at least 2 more days. If they caught him now, billions of humans would die. Sungmin made a difficult choice. Instead of hiding until they found him, he would force them to fight on his terms. He activated the trap he had been preparing for weeks. The ship's artificial gravity system was connected to hundreds of small generators throughout the Defiance. Sungmin had spent weeks carefully changing the programming in each one. Now, with the press of a single button, he could control gravity in every room of the ship. He pressed a button. In the main corridor, Velthara suddenly found herself floating toward the ceiling. Her lieutenant spun helplessly in the air, unable to control his movement. Throughout the ship, Vorthak warriors who had been walking normally were now tumbling through doorways they could not see. But Sungmin had planned more than just floating enemies. In some rooms, gravity pulled sideways toward walls covered with sharp metal pieces he had placed there. In other areas, gravity pulled down with 3 times normal force, crushing Zephyrians against the floor. The bug-like aliens were the most confused. Their many eyes were built to see in all directions when they were crawling on surfaces. Floating in the air, they could not tell which way was up or down. They crashed into walls and equipment. their thin arms breaking against hard surfaces. Velthra managed to grab onto a wall handle and pull herself to a communication panel. All units, we are under attack. Find the source of this interference. But finding Sung Min was not easy. He moved through the ship like a ghost, using maintenance tunnels that did not appear on any alien map. He struck at groups of enemies and disappeared before they could react. He used simple human tools as weapons. Wrenches became clubs, cutting torches became flamethrowers, and cleaning chemicals became poison gas. The Vorthak warriors tried to hunt him, but their massive size worked against them in the narrow human corridors. They could not fit through the small doors and passages that Sung Min used to escape. When they tried to break through walls, they often damaged important systems and made things worse for themselves. The Zephyrians attempted to track him using their advanced sensors, but human ships were built differently than alien ones. The Defiance had thousands of small hiding places designed for maintenance work. Every few meters, there were access panels and tool storage areas where a human could hide. For 6 hours, the battle raged through the ship. Sung Min used every dirty trick he could think of. He led enemies into rooms where the air had been replaced with poisonous gas. He caused lights to flash in patterns that hurt Zephyrian eyes. He made floor panels collapse under the weight of heavy Vorthak warriors. Slowly, the alien forces grew smaller. Many were dead or too injured to fight. Others were trapped in areas where gravity or atmosphere made movement impossible. Velthra found herself commanding only a dozen soldiers instead of the 50 she had started with. But Sung Min was also getting weaker. He had been living on emergency food for weeks. His burns still hurt, and new injuries from the fighting made every movement painful. He knew he could not keep running forever. The end came when Velthra made a smart decision. Instead of trying to catch Sung Min, she ordered her remaining forces to gather in the ship's main hangar bay. This was the largest open space on the Defiance, with only one entrance. If Sung Min wanted to stop them, he would have to come to them. But Velthra had also sent a message to the Hegemony fleet waiting outside. "Destroy this ship," she commanded. "Use plasma cannons to burn it to nothing. I would rather die than let this human escape." From his hidden position near the hangar, Sung Min heard her words. He smiled despite his pain. The aliens were going to do exactly what he needed them to do. His reactor modifications were not quite finished, but they were close enough. When the alien ships began charging their weapons to destroy the Defiance, they would also trigger his transmitter. The explosion would kill him, but it would also send the stolen hegemony data across the galaxy to warn other humans. Sung Min picked up his last weapon and stepped into the hangar to face his enemies. It was time to finish what he had started. Sung Min walked slowly into the main hangar bay, his makeshift weapon held firmly in his hands. It was a plasma cutter he had modified with parts from a broken alien device. Behind him, the reactor hummed with dangerous energy from all the changes he had made over the past weeks. 12 aliens waited for him in the large open space. Commander Velthra stood in the center, her crystal skin glowing with anger. For massive Vorthak warriors flanked her, their forearms holding strange weapons that crackled with power. The remaining Zephyrians stayed behind cover, their many eyes watching for any movement. "So the dead human reveals himself," Velthra said, her voice echoing the empty hangar. "You have caused much trouble, little creature, but your interference ends now." Sung Min looked around the hangar. This room had been where his crew loaded supplies and equipment for their mission. He remembered laughing here with Sergeant Kong and Corporal Yun just a month ago. Now they were dead, and he was the last human left alive. "You made one mistake," Sung Min said quietly. "You should have made sure I was really dead." Velthra raised her weapon. "A mistake we will not repeat. Your species will be extinct within the year. We know the location of every human world. Earth, Mars, Europa, all will burn. Will they?" Sung Min smiled, even though his whole body hurt. "You know, you aliens are very smart. Your technology is amazing. Your ships are faster than ours. Your weapons are more powerful." The Vorthak warriors moved closer, ready to attack. But Velthra held up her hand, curious about what the human would say. "But you never understood one thing about humans," Sung Min continued. "We do not build things just to work. We build them to survive. And sometimes we build them to send messages. He pulled a small device from his pocket. It looked like a simple human tool, nothing special. But Velthara's eyes widened as she realized what it was. A detonator, she whispered. The reactor has been modified, Sungmin explained. When I press this button, it will not just explode. It will become a transmitter more powerful than anything you have ever seen. Every piece of information I stole from your computers will be broadcast across subspace to every human colony. Velthara's crystal face showed fear for the first time. Your primitive reactor cannot reach across such distances. The explosion will simply kill us all. Human engineering, Sungmin said with pride. We do not make things elegant like you do. We make them work when everything else fails. My modification will turn this entire ship into one giant message. Your fleet positions, your technology, your plans. Everything will reach human space in minutes instead of months. The Zephyrians chittered nervously behind their cover. They understood technology better than the others, and they could see that the human might be telling the truth. Even if you succeed, Velthara said, you will die with us. Is your message worth your life? Sungmin thought of his dead crewmates. He thought of Earth, where his sister lived with her 2 small children. He thought of the colonies full of families who had no idea that death was coming for them. Yes, he said simply. It is... He pressed a button. The reactor did not explode immediately. Instead, it began to change in ways that alien science had never seen before. The fusion reaction became unstable, but in a controlled way that Sungmin had planned. Energy built up faster and faster, but instead of destroying everything at once, it created a massive subspace pulse. Velthara and her warriors fired their weapons, but it was too late. The energy wave that erupted from the Defiance was more powerful than anything they had ever encountered. It crippled every hegemony ship within light years, their delicate systems failing when faced with raw human engineering. But more importantly, the wave carried data. Everything Sungmin had learned about the hegemony flew through subspace faster than light itself. Fleet positions, weapon specifications, tactical plans. All of it raced toward human colonies across the galaxy. On the planet New Shanghai, Admiral Park received the transmission while eating breakfast with his family. Within minutes, he was calling every human commander he could reach. On the mining station at Kepler 442, Captain Lee got the message during her sleep shift. She immediately woke her crew and began preparing defenses. On Earth itself, General Kim was at a meeting when the data arrived. The room fell silent as they realized what they were seeing. Complete intelligence about an alien force that planned to destroy humanity. As the Defiance tore itself apart, Sungmin felt strangely peaceful. He had been alone for weeks, hiding and fighting with no hope of rescue. But in his final moments, he knew that his sacrifice had meaning. The ship's destruction created a brilliant flash that could be seen from a great distance. But to the human colonies receiving his message, it looked like the dawn of a new day. They now had the information they needed to fight back. The hegemony had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had destroyed dozens of species with ease. But they had never faced enemies like humans, beings who refused to surrender even when death was certain. They had made their greatest mistake when they left one human alive. And now, that mistake would cost them everything.